You see, the ego works your mind over through three general categories of thought. One are thoughts of greed, attraction. I want, I need, I must have. I love, give me that. The one that appears to be the opposite is aversion. I don't like that. I don't want that. Get that away from me. I don't like that person. I don't like that philosophy. I don't like that idea. I don't like that political stance. And I don't have to listen to it. And I can tell you aversions are really very high for people right now. I see kind of waves of let's say, trends of how the mind works moving through society. And right now, aversions are very high. Sometimes it's aversion about the self. Sometimes it's aversion about somebody else. When a war breaks out, there's a lot of aversion. And it's very hard to see whoever one deems as the enemy as being another part of themselves, because they wouldn't do that. I wouldn't take tanks into a country and just start shooting, leveling all of the infrastructure. I wouldn't do that, the ego says. It can get very arrogant, can't it? Although it might do it to itself. It might destroy its own inner infrastructure of faith, of courage, of loving kindness, of patience. It might destroy all of that infrastructure while looking at what someone else is doing out there. Inwardly, it maybe doesn't use tanks, but it sets off bombs of fear and anger all the time. And so there is a war going on inside of self, always. Sometimes it isn't a raging war. Other times it is. When you just can't stand another political view from your own. Or when you think you've got to convince everybody to think the way you think. That's a type of warfare. Nobody's dying, but it is a type of warfare, you see. And I think most of people don't really see how much warfare goes on inside. And thus, when it happens out in the world, oh, it's very sad. It is bringing back that Piscean need to go to war. Piscean age had more wars than any other prior age in recorded or unrecorded history. Part of it, as we said, was there were more people. And so as some folks decided they wanted more land, they would just override the land space that belonged to someone else and take it. That is not an Aquarian mentality. That is not an Aquarian principle. It's not really even a Piscean principle, but it's what came out of the Piscean age, because humans learn to use the energy, spiritual energy, they learn to use for personal levels of greed and power. And so we can look at the mind and we can see where it wants this and never has enough of that and can't get enough of this, and nothing will ever satisfy it in certain areas. That's all greed. But the opposite is hatred. And then people, I usually use the word aversion because people bristle when I use the word hatred. They want to think they can keep their aversions, and they don't have hatred. So, okay, we'll use aversions. Aversions are very strong right now. And the third category of afflictive thoughts is delusion. That's pretty big right now, too. All those who are trying to deny that there's a war going on are experiencing delusion. All those who are trying to pretend that they're not affected by things that go on in the world are in some state of delusion. But you see, it gets more subtle too. Every time you doubt yourself, doubt your capabilities, every time you enter a place where you don't like yourself, those are deluded states, because what's in here is divine. If you can't experience it in a given moment, that doesn't mean it's not there. Your ego may be activated in such a way that it does not let you perceive what is really there. And so you and everybody else act out of the false belief that you're flawed or somebody else is flawed.